So start with you go and turning the laptop off.
All right, so I turned the laptop off.
Hang on, hang on. It
Okay.
now.
All right, so I turned the laptop off. I was exhausted. I was tired. I felt like at least I had thoughts, like there were tears coming on. Um, but I went into my girlfriend's arms and I just laid there with her, and it's actually really cool. Dharma. It was a tender moment. I told her, like, at first she didn't want to cuddle. Actually, she didn't feel up to it. But I just looked at her in the eyes and I just told her, I was like, I don't know what came over me, but I was coming back from the chat and I just felt like I wanted to hug my mommy. And she's like, oh, and she like grabbed me and held me close, and I just was able to let out some tears. And it's cool because I noticed that I had more unwholesome thoughts at one point, and I noticed that was bringing more tears out, but it wasn't like a problem. Whereas I think if I cried in the past, it would be like, unwholesome thought that I would not be conscious of. And I would think that there's some, force governing me that's making me cry. But what I could see, I think, is that I have a strong part in that too, especially in the continuation of crying. And
Mhm.
I was able to enjoy it. I was like, oh, I like this. This is nice. This is nice to just cry like this. This is okay. This feels good.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's really cool. And yeah, I just chilled out, and I feel like I've been the axing away at the thoughts has
Mhm.
been kind of like this action figure is like in my head, like phew, phew.
Uh,
And
uh-huh.
I think I started to come down from that and instead just let it be like a flash, but like more
Uh-huh.
gentle, like a gentle kind of attitude. Even the axing is more of a gentle attitude rather
Mhm.
than like I'm gonna get you. And um, and then I just follow that up immediately with a congratulations and a smile.
Mm.
And then today I got up and I anytime I axe something now pretty reliably, I don't like there's there's
Let's go.
no there's nothing to
Let's
axe at. Like
right.
I
Exactly.
I see the unwholesome thought, but like when I axe at it, it feels like empty. Like, I guess that would be a good way to say it. It feels completely empty.
Mhm.
But I just for protection, I have been doing it anyway, and I
Mhm.
noticed, oh, that's okay. It's interesting. It doesn't seem like a chore. There's sometimes things that come up like I don't want to do this right now, and I'm like, ah, I see you too. It's all right.
Mhm.
Uh, but now I got this really cool idea.
Wait,
Um,
before you go into the new idea, hang on to
okay,
that.
okay,
Let's go back
all right.
and
Let's go back.
do a postmortem of the moment that you're in the arms of your
Okay,
mommy.
okay,
And even earlier back to when you mentioned that about mommy, she was enormously receptive to that,
she
as
was.
opposed to, I'm not your mommy, I'm your girlfriend,
I know.
which
I told
she
her
would
about our
have.
chat. I
Uh
told
huh.
her about our chat actually, that it's like healthy to talk like that with each other if we can nurture each other in that way and also know what we're doing. And
Hmm.
she likes it. We like it very
Yes,
much.
right. It touches the nerve with women in a way that Papa doesn't touch with men.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mama. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, talking about the tears now for a moment.
Okay.
Um, I'll use an expression that's kind of weird, and it doesn't fit into most people's understanding, and that is the term, and it's not an oxymoron, it's a descriptive term,
Mm.
the tears of an arahat,
Hmm. I've heard that.
because you would think that an arahat would be beyond all tears,
Mm. Right, because
like a
that's
warrior.
an arahat is supposed to be like at the end of have completed the path. That's what an
Right.
arahat is. Yeah.
Uh, okay, except that you're now talking about the joy of the relief, that this is the word that I would use. In fact, I would ask you the question is that while those tears are coming out, it's a sense of relief, a sense of, oh, wow.
Oh, this is, yeah.
Okay. That relief is the quality that they're talking about in the suttas when they're talking about letting go.
Yeah. Mm,
But the Western mind has the quality of prying our hands loose from it,
mm,
rather than the reality of after we've let go, our hand begins to feel better.
mm,
And if we let go of something in the mind begins to feel better. It's not grabbing and holding and clinging on to something. Now it can relax. And you had a really nice moment of deep relaxation.
mhm,
Good for you. Yeah.
mhm,
Okay. In this regard, tears are good. That this is also why some music literally does bring tears to the eyes. They've known
mhm,
about it for so long. They do it with movies and, they call it tear jerkers and all of that
mhm,
kind of stuff.
mhm,
Okay. These are not necessarily unwholesome tears.
mm,
For one thing, if they are tears of loss, it's the tears of someone else's loss, or let us say displace it in from my pity party into the reality that I live in a complete world of a pity party.
mm, mm,
Okay. And this is also, we have words like pathos, and there is great beauty in pathos. Okay. Uh, uh, Plays. There are many of them that are tragedies, but the ones who really make an impact are the ones who are also a farce, where the tragedy is
mm,
ridiculous.
mm,
Hmm.
mhm. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know if you're familiar with Chekhov. I used to do a lot of Chekhov in acting school.
mm,
And Chekhov is very much like that. There's a lot of humor, but they're all tragedies.
uh-huh. There's also the beauty in that.
Yeah, the beauty in
Uh,
that. Yeah.
there's a lot of beauty in it, and one of the ones that I would mention would be a particular symphony by a particular composer. His name was Tchaikovsky. You've heard of it, and
Mm,
it's his sixth symphony that he wrote when he was in the depths of depression.
mm.
But at that time of the writing of it, he was not committing suicide. That happened later, actually,
Oh.
after yet another piece of work that was done or
Mm,
unfinished. He's got an
mm,
unfinished seventh symphony.
mm,
But this sixth symphony that he did is absolutely profoundly sad to the point that it brings tears to the eyes.
mm,
But these are not harsh tears, they're sweet.
mm, mm,
It's so beautiful that it really touches the soul,
mm.
and that we need to
The
experience.
soul.
Right. Goes down to the depths so that we can actually shine a light on um, the tragedy of human existence. Is that it's not a farce the way that it ought to be, and that the whole society is about that. There is actually a videotape on YouTube by his name is Ajhan Maha Bua from Udon Thani. He died in 1912. This was done a few years before he died. And the topic that he's talking about is, does an arhat cry? Which is exactly the point that we're making here. This is the whole thing about it. And that in there, he uses language that the Western ear winces on, as because it's low, harsh language, but it's actually the literal translation out of the Thai. The word in Thai language is ki, and they have ki bari. Bari is a cigarette. What is ki bari? Ash. That's how the word is used all over the place. Okay. There is also a chili that is a very tiny one. It's about the size of a rat turd. And guess what? Its name in Thailand is Kinu prick,
Mhm.
the prick, the chili of the key of a mouse.
Mm.
So this is the word that Ajahn Maha Bua is saying when he says that the whole society of humanity is nothing but a giant toilet full of shit.
For sure. Yep.
And
Yeah.
there's a beautiful sadness in that.
Hmm.
And part of the sadness is that each one of the turds think that they're the only turd in the bowl without recognizing, no, the turd, you can't tell who did what turd. You know what
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean? But that there is this sad, profound sadness to it. And the cry is not a cry of desperation, it's a cry of relief that we can see it the way that it is. So I thought that I would add that for you to give you a pat on the back and congratulations. Let's go have a good cry together. It's relaxing, it's relieving that people after a cry they feel so much better. And
Hmm.
part of the crying also is that they're doing some pretty good breathing during it.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Also,
noticed.
it cleans out and flushes out the eyes. I mean, it's a curative process when
Hmm.
done in the way that we're talking about.
Hmm. Yeah.
What a relief it is. Huh.
What a relief it is.
And so, if you're listening to a piece of music and it makes you cry, enjoy it. It's the
Oh,
beauty of being alive.
oh, I love that. Oh, for sure. Love that. Yeah.
So, then you were about to embark upon the next thing.
Yeah. So I was telling you about how I've noticed with the axing of a thought that it started to occur much more empty. Uh, Whereas before it was like there was this whole world of like joy and throwing the axe and then seeing it come back, and there was
And
like,
conquering a great big target. Yeah.
yeah. And now it's more like I'll like, okay, so this is weird because what I can't tell what exactly is happening other than this, and what I've been experiencing
I have
today.
some questions for
You do?
you. Yes.
You have questions for me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Would you say that part of the distinction between a great big axe throwing and hitting a great big target versus now it's much more almost empty and easy peasy is because you're catching it a little quicker now so that it doesn't get so big in your own mind? Either one of them.
I think it's that. Yeah, I think it's that too. And it's that I've had so much. I was talking about this with Dan today, Dan Goldfield. He's talking about, I think what I'm starting to see is that once you have really great content that you're replacing, so great content would be the unwholesome, would be the wholesome thoughts. Not great content would be the unwholesome thoughts. And when you start replacing the unwholesome thoughts with the wholesome, you get exposed to what we call the message of that content, which is the positive feedback loop. And the
Mhm.
exposure to that positive feedback loop over and over and over again creates evidence where you can have complete conviction that you can do this and that you can feel good. And it starts to occur much more um, easily and quicker that you can feel good when encountering an unwholesome thought. It can be,
Mhm.
whereas before it would take a whole breath to feel good. Now it could take a couple seconds of doing an inhale to feel good. It's like a spark, like a lightning bolt of sati. Like, Oh, it feels good. And now I can even say, oh, that feels good, even if it doesn't feel as good as I'm expressing it, but it feels good to say that it feels good. So it's like,
Go ahead. I'm just seeing a message.
do you want to read it? Do you want to
No, I
read?
did
Take
it
some more time? Okay.
already.
Okay.
Already
Um,
done.
so it's like the wholesome is just compounding and compounding and compounding. So what I've noticed today and what I wanted to like check on with you about is um it seems like, or what I've noticed, no, what has happened today is there has in general been less instances in which I have unwholesome thoughts.
Hmm.
But what's interesting is I don't know if it's that I'm noticing the unwholesome thoughts less or they're actually happening less. Because the thing is, even
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes, they
yeah,
do start to happen less often,
less often. But the thing is I can't tell the difference
and they're
between,
not as strong.
yeah, but the thing is I can't tell the difference between if they're happening less often or they're still happening the same amount. I'm just not noticing them as much.
Okay. Well, logic will say that if you're developing a skill, then as you're developing the skill, you're better at practicing that skill than you were before you started
Right.
practicing the
Right.
skill.
So it seems like it would be the former, that there really actually is less, at least in
Right.
this moment or this day.
Hmm.
Um,
Exactly. While we're practicing, and not only that, but now you're directing that thing that is referred to why it's that item on the list of the Eightfold Noble Path that is translated as right intention, that we've also talked about has to do with right attitude and also right expectation.
mm,
But that the difficulty with the word intention is that that also is closely related to tanha, or wanting, which is
mm,
slightly different. But we can use the word intention here, right intention. So now your right intention is to have wholesome thoughts.
hmm
Your right intention is
to
to
feel good.
find these, yeah, it's a feel good. We begin to take on that winner's attitude, or we can talk about it in the sense of the attitude of the winner is that I do have wholesome thoughts. I'm the winner here. These
Yeah.
thoughts are wholesome. Let's inspect them once again. Let's inspect them once again. But always we keep looking, and they become more often more wholesome and less often unwholesome, and very rarely downright harmful.
Right. Right. Now, what's really interesting about this, though, is that the joy that I was experiencing, as I mentioned, as I've been doing this practice, is much less as well. But this is where it gets really interesting, okay? I can be like watching TV or being out with my girlfriend or doing something, and I can't tell if like nothing is going on or I'm just not paying attention because I'm still feeling pretty good, but I'm not having to remind myself
No,
to feel
oh,
good.
good. That's
And I'm
because you're
not,
building up a habit slowly. You're
yeah,
changing your frame of reference. That's another way of talking about it. The Sama Sankappa, the right intention. Now we can say you're actually changing or shifting your way of looking at things.
yeah,
Okay. An example of that is that there is a drawing that has two vases sitting side by side, and they are kind of scrolly work. But when you set them side by side, obviously a face appears in the gap between them. You've seen this, right? Okay. Now, the question is, who sees which one first? And that's the way that we look at the whole world. We see the vase in a, let us say, the way that it is, but we don't see things that are hidden. Another example is that there's a drawing that has a young woman and an old woman in the same drawing. One of them, the nose of one is the chin of the other one,
Right,
right?
right.
That kind of thing. Now, the point that we're making is that if we can shift our focus from one of them to the other and really be able to see it that other way, now we can see it completely of what the artist has done. What a magnificent piece of art this is that this artist can put in, and many people cannot see the hidden image in there. Okay, this is kind of the way that now we're looking at reality. That humanity and our human culture has taught us to look at the vase only and not look at the gap between the vase, which is not just a vase, two vases together. Now there's a photo of a person
Or
inside
that,
there.
or I would even say is the vase is all there is to
The
humanity.
vase is all that there is to humanity.
There's not a possibility of there being any other way,
Exactly.
but in our
Uh,
imagination or in a fantasy, which
in the
that isn't even the face,
in
the
the
other face. Yeah.
in the 1980s, there was actually a bumper sticker that I saw that was popular. And the bumper sticker actually said, "Life is shit, and then you die." Okay. That means that they cannot see it the way that, because many people will say, well, they're saying just the same thing that Ajhan Maha Bua is saying. And they're saying, no, your tears of life is shit, and then you die is an unhappy one, rather than the Anchan's tears is the tears for joy. Why, I'm so relieved that I can see that there is more to this than just the vase. I can see that the world is a toilet of shit,
Mm.
but that's not all there is to it. So life is shit and then you die means they can't see the other side. That's
Mm.
exactly what happens with atheism. You see, most atheists, in fact, the hardest of the hardcore atheists, were at one time hardcore Christians. That follows in line exactly with things like it's ex smokers who will tell you to stop smoking around them. The non smokers who are never smoked, they don't care so much. But if you're an ex smoker and proud of being able to give up cigarettes, you're going to start becoming a policeman for others smoking cigarettes.
Mm.
Another example is fat people don't like fat people.
Mm.
Why do fat people don't like? Because they don't like them, the fat they have together, and they condemn themselves for it because they've always been condemned for it. And so they go around condemning everything that's fat.
Mhm.
That's their nature.
Mm.
All right. The point is, though, that we can't see the other side of things. And so, welcome to the other world, the world of relief. Wow, I can see it the way that it is. And that, by the way, that word release that we're like talking about a feeling is exactly what we're talking about in art also. The other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's excellent that we could put this together. And that as time goes by, the wholesome will begin to take over the unwholesome so that you spend less time in the unwholesome when you're mindful. Now, if mindfulness is not there, all games are back off. The way that I would say it, in fact, is like this. In fact, with martial arts or anything else, someone can be an absolute skilled marksman, but in the old West, the old teacher would take the young fast draw artist out and kick over rocks so that he's confronted 3 feet away with a rattlesnake about to strike him.
Mm.
All right. In other words, if you forget your skills in the point of danger, then it doesn't matter what skills you've got. And the skill of sati, the skill of waking up, is that skill. And if we don't wake up to look at what's going on, the mind's going to get flooded back with the old history.
So that's kind of like why I'm saying that I can't tell if it's that the unwholesome is just happening less, or if I'm just not noticing it. And I certainly
How's your
don't.
sati? That's one of the questions to keep asking yourself. How is my investigation? In other words, now that we are investigating to the point of being able to remove the unwholesome thoughts, now we want to investigate the skills and tools we use to get there. Okay. This is actually in the suttas in number 111. One by one as they occur. So now let's talk about what is it that's one by one as they occur, with the point of view that what's in the mind already is wholesome thoughts. So the things that can be looked at now when the mind is wholesome is, how is my guarding to make sure that these are wholesome thoughts? How is my sati to remember that I am looking for the wholesome thoughts? Do I wake up to look just often, just to see? That's what we mean by unremitting mindfulness. Unremitting sati means that we keep practicing until it becomes a habit of just kind of waking up to check how things are. There's several examples of this. One of them out of the Visuddhimagga is the example of in in ancient times and still in Thailand. You know what a lungi is, or a sarong?
No.
It's a long piece of cloth that is used tied to the waist. Women wear them, men wear them. It's a skirt, but it's just one great big piece of cloth that's folded. Monks wear them, the
Okay.
lower garment,
I've got a
okay?
visual. Yeah.
Also called a range cloth. It's about the size of a large towel,
Okay.
okay? Now imagine that this cloth is tied in a way so that the long part of it is a hammock.
Mm,
And it is a perfect hammock for an infant. That
mhm,
most of the infants in Thailand, that's all the baby crib they ever get. It's
mm,
just an old piece of cloth that was in the closet, tied into a hammock.
mm,
Okay. When the infant is not going to sleep, then mom has to watch it carefully to make sure that the child is going to stay in there because it's fidgeting around. But once the child is sleeping, now mom only needs to keep an eye on it. She can actually gaze this way, and as the swing comes back and forth in her view, is all she needs. She does not have to continuously look at the child, just check up on him occasionally. Okay? That's how we want to practice our sati, just checking up on things occasionally to make sure everything is hunky dory. The other example then would be that in Sutta number 19, when the cow herd gets the cows into the pasture where they're all safe and secure and they're feeding, he can go sit down under a tree and he doesn't have to keep the stick with him to put him back in line. He takes the stick and he goes and he sits under a tree and he just rests and watches the cows.
mm, mm.
Okay. So that's the kind of analogy that we're looking for. So long as we keep having that sati going, everything is going to be available for you because you remember that they're available to look at, to investigate, to see what's going on. And you're still in the very early phases of this. You're making really, really fast progress, Alex. And I congratulate you for that. But there is still a process going on.
For sure. For
And
sure.
that's what we need to keep track of, is that this is merely a process, a progress that you're going on. And pretty soon you'll begin to see the things that you're asking questions about. You begin to
Mm,
see, oh, yes, in fact, the mind does get more settled.
mm.
If you keep
Yeah.
petting a dog, it will keep getting settled down.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what All right. Well, then I think I'm already seeing it, because this is what it's kind of like. Do you know how, like, before you ever practice any, I don't know if you can remember back this far, but if you before you ever practice the Dhamma, before
Oh, I
you,
remember quite a lot.
okay. So like I remember, right, that before I practiced the Dhamma, I didn't know that I wasn't aware of unwholesome thoughts.
Hmm.
I didn't know.
You
So
didn't know.
it it,
You
it,
didn't
it
even ever hear or have the concept of unwholesome thoughts. It didn't
no,
occur to you. It's not in your vocabulary. No
no.
one ever mentioned it.
So like until I had that waking up experience, I didn't know there was anything to wake up from. So now that being said, after like spending time in like what I've woken up into, it seems like at least today, it's kind of like how it was before I even practiced the Dhamma. Like I'm not aware of that there's anything that I'm not aware of, because like what can you be aware
Except
of
that
that
you
isn't there
feel
to be aware
different
of?
now. Now
What?
you
Yeah.
feel different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the point. Okay, so this also fits in with the Zen story of the student of Zen is in the valley, and the mountain is a mountain, and the trees are trees, and he climbs the mountain of his mind. And he looks around and he says, "You know something? Mountains are not mountains at all. Trees are not trees at all."
Yeah.
In the and then he climbs back down the mountain and he looks back at the mountain and he says, "Oh, yeah, mountains are mountains and trees are trees." But now his whole perspective is completely different from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is also what Jesus says, to be in the world, but not of the world. And the Buddha says, yes, everybody's stuck in the world. You got to get out of the world and clean that out. But when you go back into the world, don't go be backing into the world. Go back into the world above the world.
Of the
And
world.
Jesus said, and Jesus says, be in the world, but not of the world. Be
So
above it.
so they're backwards. Oh, they're the same? Okay.
They're the same thing, right? Well, the
I
point is that the Buddha says, but you got to get out of the world first,
Yeah.
both physically and also mentally. And then you can come back into the world, but not be stuck back in that world. You
Yeah.
can deal with people and still be happy.
Well, it's interesting, because I took of the world like it's above the world. Like I think of those as the same.
Uh huh. Well, it says be in the world, but not of the world. So of the world is stuck in the world, and not,
Oh.
and so not of the world is being above the world. So yeah, Buddha and Jesus are spot on together on that one. In
Hmm.
that regard, by the way, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was a big fan of Jesus, but completely ignorant of Christianity. Never met a Christian.
So, I mean, like a couple times throughout today, whenever I would notice an unwholesome thought, it would be something like, "Oh, I don't want to throw an axe right now," or "I don't want to do this." And I was just
Oh,
like,
just relax. You've
and I was
already
just,
thrown the axe. In fact,
yeah.
when you say I don't want to throw the axe, the thought of throwing the axe has already happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right. Exactly. It's like this now. I don't really
Yeah,
like. It's
it doesn't
actually
have to be
the
a great
actually
big thing to hit a great big target because it didn't get a chance to grow into a big target, a tiny little target with a tiny little one thought axe.
yeah, and
Ah, I see you, Myra.
noticing the unwholesome thought is the trigger for all of the wholesome thoughts and all of the great stuff happening. And so
Exactly so.
so so w- so this is interesting, right? Because since there's been less unwholesome thoughts, I've been concerned that I will have less joy because I have less triggers to trigger that joy. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense at all. You can have
Okay.
all the joy you want. You're now thinking that the joy is conditioned upon something that you've got to do.
No, 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 no. So at first, when we start noticing the unwholesome thoughts, right? We
Mm-hmm.
we learn to replace those unwholesome thoughts with the feeling good, the joy, congratulations, success,
Mm-hmm.
right? What I'm saying is that now that I'm having less unwholesome thoughts, there's
Mm-hmm.
less triggers for that joy that I
No,
was creating.
no, no. I'll give
But
you a new trigger.
Wait,
We
what?
just need to put some new triggers in there.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't told you about all of the triggers.
Okay.
That in fact you've got the important trigger. The important trigger that you've got is the trigger that seeing an unwholesome thought and taking the right effort, that's the triggering of the gladdening of the mind.
Yes. Yeah. They're
Yes.
connected now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, what happens when you wake up and you see that the thought is already wholesome? Can you congratulate yourself for that too?
I'm doing that too. Yeah, I'm doing
All
that
right.
too.
Well, there's
Hmm.
another trigger. All right.
Okay.
So there's more to it than that also. And that is that you can reflect upon, wow, how nice it's been for oh so long now. I can't believe that this
Mm.
stuff lasts that long. And that
Mm.
and that statement
That's
of that
good.
long can in the beginning start in 5 minutes, the next one is an hour, and then a 5 years, and then
Okay.
wow, it's been
I,
that long since I've been angry. Wow.
I know
Yeah.
another one that I've been doing is sometimes I'll be watching TV with my girlfriend and I'll be like, "Oh, I feel good. This feels
Mhm.
good right now. Oh, congratulations. Success. That's great. Good job. Good job. Oh,
Uh-huh.
oh, man, this feels good."
Uh-huh.
Like I'll
So
just do
you knew
things.
about those second triggers anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you knew about them.
It's just
You just
the f-
momentarily, when talking to me, you forgot, but you
the f-
know that they're there. That you can, in
yeah.
fact, with sati, you can take the good feeling that you now have and boost it again.
It's just really interesting because I came from every time I would see an unwholesome thought, that would be a trigger for more joy. And then I think I've started to see like a belief that I have that I need to see the unwholesome thought in order to trigger my joy. But I
Hmm.
think what I can see now is that the joy is just here. And I can trust that it's here and enjoy and relish in it being here and celebrate that. And that's
Ah,
it.
and relief, and the relief
And
comes
the,
is I don't have to work at getting it
and
anymore.
the
Here it
relief,
is.
yeah. Oh, I don't have to work at getting it anymore. Just right here. Okay. And that's freaking nuts because
See,
like
see, look at your trigger yourself right into 50 again. This
it's
is
freaking
freaking
nuts
nuts. Exactly
because
the reason.
yeah, because like a week ago it was like I needed all that unwholesome. I believed I needed all those unwholesome thoughts to trigger the joy, but now I'm seeing when there's less unwholesome thoughts, it's like
Oh.
okay, all right, and
But
there
this
have
is
been some
coming out of the
fears.
conditioning.
Yeah.
Wait for the fears. Let's hang on for that. Let's go
Okay.
back and look at the point that that conditioning is that you gotta work in order to eat.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
just playing out at a more subtle level. And now you're recognizing no, you don't even have to work to eat the best joyful pie of the mind that you can create.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've got the triggers now. We know the steps so that we can put ourselves into that elated bliss. This is freaking nuts. It really is.
Now I
And you
just
can
go
use
ahead.
that. Okay, so that's that recognition then that you are beginning to control the mind that is now free from the burden of delayed gratification. That you do have permission to cheat and get all the joy you want without hurting anyone, and you don't get caught.
Yeah, and I'm
In
giving
fact, every
myself permission. I'm giving
give it
myself permission. I'm next to my girlfriend, and sometimes I'm like thinking she must think I'm weird, and I'm like, oh, it feels so good. Right next to her, I'm just like, oh, this is so nice. And
uh-huh.
when I notice that judgment, I'm like, ah, axe that.
Okay, well,
Oh,
here's what
that's
you
their
can
one.
do with that. You can say to her, just to pass that on in a really interesting and real way
Mhm.
for an ordinary person, is you can say, wow, it feels so good now to be with you.
I do that too. I do that
Yeah.
too. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I was like cuddling with her tonight. I mean, this morning, and I was like, I normally would like hold myself back from expressing feeling so good because I would think it would make me look mm, needy or clingy or weak or whatever, because here's the guy. The guy's supposed to be the strong rock, and here he is like, oh, this feels so good. And I was like, no, axe and that, axe and that. Oh, it feels so good to be in your arms right now. Oh, this feels so good. And she looked at me and she's like, she just laughs at me. She just smiles. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Well, that's what friendship and Sangha is all about.
Yeah.
Finding some joy and spreading it with others.
So the other thing I wanted to say is like, it's funny, right? The one that was coming up the most is the one that's still coming up, but it comes up less. It does come up less. And what that is
Okay. Well,
I'm
that's
afraid.
the first question that you had was
Congratulations.
yeah, you can see it when it does come up. Don't worry about when it doesn't, because that's just another one of them that comes up.
Right. Right. Exactly. I noticed that one too. It's like, wait, where are the unwholesome thoughts? And I was like, oh, that's okay. I'll axe that one too. Um, but the one that comes up is like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose this, or I'm afraid I need to do something because I don't have unwholesome thoughts triggering my joy. I'm afraid I need to do something. And then I can see
Mhm.
that. I'm like, oh, that triggers the joy. There we go.
Right. That's cluing into that whole quality of the expectations that we built up.
Yeah.
Almost, you could say that the whole pile of it is our life story.
Yeah.
But in that
Absolutely.
moment, it's the expectation, just like Jeff was talking about, the expectation of the feeling of fear comes up on the out breath because the expectation there may be some trouble.
It's really interesting. It's like, I would say like on the outermost layer, this thought, the way it's manifested is I need to do something with my life. I need a
Hmm.
purpose. I need to do something new.
Yeah,
I need a new job. And I
right.
used to like
You need to
obsess over
enjoy it.
that.
That's I know.
Yeah.
You need to
I
be able to enjoy your life.
yeah.
Obsess over that.
Yeah. I used to obsess over like purpose and the job and this and that. And I think
Oh
that
no,
comes
that's
from
the whole point. Let's go back to that. What is the purpose of life?
to enjoy it.
Ultimate to enjoy it. What else could there possibly be a purpose to life?
Yeah, it's not that we have
God
some
gave
kind
you
of
life. If you want
purpose.
to talk about in Christian terms, God gave you life for you to enjoy it.
Right. No, I'm with you on that. I'm saying I used to see it the other way that
Uh-huh.
I gotta focus on a purpose. I gotta get this job. I gotta be
Oh,
this kind of person. I gotta do
that's the
personal
difference
development.
between the religion
Yeah.
and the spiritual. The spiritual is God gave you life for you to enjoy it. And religion comes by and says you can't until you do what I tell you to do. We've got the inside dope here, and you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got your toy, but you can't turn it on or play with it until we tell you to.
Yeah. Yeah. Until you pray enough.
Until you pray, whatever it is that we give
Yeah.
ourselves, because that always becomes an internal thing. And that it happens just at the point of time in meditation for us to now be able to see that mechanism that's been driving our lives.
Yeah. That's been really cool. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that I came up with this new image that is it's more gentle than the axe. It's instead imagining I'm
A net.
like my no, like my whole being is like made of water and I'm like
That's even further.
swishing it toward them to rush into me and give them a big hug. So
Uh-huh.
it's like it's like this big burst of like love and power. It's like, oh, you're worried about something? Oh, whew, come here, you know,
Hmm.
rather than like, yeah. So I'm noticing it's like
The
getting
softer
softer.
image, but it's right.
Yes. Yeah. And I noticed that it changes my being too. That image is starting to look different on the outside too. I'm like smiling differently. I'm behaving softer. It's just incredible.
Congratulations. Success stories. I really like the success stories. Really proud of you.
Congratulations to you too, Dhammarato.
Mm. Oh, I'm just having fun. I'm just here for the show.
uh,
Well, in that way, I mean, that's what the conductor of the orchestra is doing too. I mean, why would you be a conductor of an orchestra if you really didn't enjoy the show?
yeah.
But the dancers on the stage, they're doing their thing. And they're the ones who need to be congratulated for their own mental new choreography.
True. But it is
They're
a
learning to
congratulations
dance.
to you too. That is a congratulations to you too, because you have helped me develop the enthusiasm to light my own fire, to light my own engine, or
Hmm.
just to spark my own engine.
Right. That's all I've got is a spark. The blowing and the fire is all up to you and the kindling. But I will come by and light your fire if you let me.
Oh, I'll let you.
Okay, well, because a lot of people would prefer to blow me off, which is okay. I can handle it.
Yeah, I
That, in
know.
fact, one of the things that I told Keyshawn, and this is very true of the Dhamma, that a lot of people have the idea that uh, the more the merrier actually means we're not successful until we get everybody. But the Buddha talked about it in the way of the Sangha of just a few good men. That in a way we can say that we're not the army here. We don't go draft recruits and try to train them. All we want is a few good men or women. I mean, it's not a sexual thing, but
Yeah.
the phrase of the for uh, the Marines is just a few good men. Because let us say that there was the difference between a zero sum game and a non zero sum game. A zero sum game is when there is only so much and it has to be shared. And so if A gets 4, then B can't have 7 if there's only 10 there. Okay. And if B demands to have 7, now we've got conflict. But there is also a non zero sum game where everybody can win. And we need to try to change the mentality from a zero sum game into a non zero sum game, but that can't happen because society operates with a zero sum game. So that what that would mean is that, um, and this happens with a lot of gurus. I've seen it, and that is that so many students come around, and they all are fighting with each other for the proximity to the teacher. In that regard, very, very few students are actually going to get all that the teacher has to say. But if the teacher has only 1 or 2 or 3 students, then those 3 or 4 students can really get it. And if they get it, then when the crowd of people then come to the guru, he's got help. He's got a Sangha already formed. And that's what I'm seeing now the need of, rather than me just teaching individual students here and there. No, it's time the students who are capable of growing in their own next Dhamma can help each other do that. That's what the real teaching of the Buddha is when we got Sangha going, when we got a community of people who were helping each other, joyfully spreading joy to each other. And so this is what is the triple gem. You've heard about that, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. And yet in Western Buddhism, they have almost no emphasis upon Sangha, and almost everything that Western Buddhism has is meditation. That's the whole sum of their game, which basically then winds up being dukkha, dukkha, dukkha. Where's the dukkha? Got a lot of dukkha here. Maybe this dukkha connects to that dukkha, and now I've got even more dukkha. And we're going to get to the bottom of this stuff.
Dukkha, more dukkha. We're gonna
More
get to the
dukkha,
bottom.
right? Bottom. There's gotta be a pony in this barrel of horse shit someplace, is the mentality that humans have. In other words, if you practice long enough, then you will get a reward. That's an old joke, by the way. Even though I've told you the punchline, I'll tell you the joke. Mother had twins. One of them was a perpetual optimist, and the other one was a perpetual pessimist. And she took them to the psychiatrist in early December, and he said, "Well, Christmas is coming, so this is what we're going to do. All the toys that you would have given to both of them, give them to the pessimist, and for the little kid who is an optimist, give him a 55-gallon big oil barrel full of horse manure, and that's his Christmas." And so mom walks into the child's bedroom of the pessimist, and there he is crashing and breaking the toys on the floor, and he's frustrated and doesn't know what to do, and says, "Where's my this, that, and the other?" Which didn't happen because mom didn't know that he wanted this, that, and the other. So she closes the door disappointed. She goes to the door of her other son and opens the door, and there he is standing in this barrel of horse shit, hooking it up both hands at the time and throwing it all over the room, saying, "Whippy, whippy!" And she looks at him and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "With all this horse shit, there's got to be a pony in here someplace."
Oh my God. That's funny.
Well, that's your Western meditator digging deep in their barrel of horse shit, thinking there's a pony at the bottom.
It's so funny because I just saw this, like optimism and pessimism are two sides of the same coin, as they both destroy each other. They both are their own
They're both
demise.
delusional. They're
Yeah.
both delusional.
Yeah, they're
And they're
both
in
their own
conflict.
destruction. They're both their own conflict, their own demise. The conflict of the optimist, he corrodes himself with shit so that he can get to the light at the end of the tunnel. The pessimist cannot enjoy what's there that they have, and so they destroy it. And so both end up destroying themselves looking for something else.
Exactly so.
It's fucking awesome. That's so cool to see.
Yes, that's why it becomes cool. It's because we can see it.
Yeah.
We can see these both sides of that. We can see that chin hidden behind the nose.
Yeah.
Or
Whereas the middle way is just when you have a bucket of shit, you learn to see that you can clean off that bucket, right?
Yeah.
You can take the bucket and empty it out. You can take the bucket, turn it on upside down, and stand on top of it and wave to everybody.
Right, and jump for joy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly so.
And
So
the house.
that's
Yeah. I got it.
that's what we would talk about. Changing any lemon into lemonade.
That's attitude right there. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the attitude. Changing it by adding a teaspoon of sugar. Put some joy in the juice, and you've got lemonade.
Yeah.
Rather than it's just bitter. But we have to remember to do that rather than just being disappointed with the bitter, hoping it to be better. Maybe if I get used to it, it'll be sweet tasting. Because in fact, we can get used to anything.
Yeah.
You get used to anything. You can put up with anything.
Yeah.
Even when we don't even know it, understand it, or look at it, just repetitive. That's part of the human mind, is repetitive over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what we've been doing with the unwholesome. Now we're beginning to change that pattern.
Man, 28 years. 28 years. And this pattern could change.
And it can change.
In a few weeks, a month. That's nuts. That's nuts.
It's freaking nuts.
It's freaking nuts. It's fucking great.
It is. That's right. That we can change.
And it's funny, like I'm starting to notice the trouble that I'm saving myself, because usually I would say like, oh, that's great. And then there'd be like a tinge of, oh, you don't really believe that, or
Okay.
it's not completely great. But that wasn't there just now. It was like missing. It was like, that's gone. That's not there.
That's
So
right. The more you practice the wholesome, the less unwholesome you have to deal with.
mhm.
So we've got 3 triggers in there, not one just the trigger of aha, I see you, Myra, but aha, you're not there, Myra, is the second trigger. And then the third trigger is,
Congratulations
gosh,
again.
where have you been? I haven't seen you in so long.
And that's why when unwholesome comes back, hello darkness, my old friend,
I'm
seems so easy, and and
easy.
and, and it makes sense, because it's like, oh, well, hey, I know you.
I know you. I've seen you before.
um okay, so now where we're at is starting to notice more of the wholesome thoughts. Now we're going to start noticing the wholesome thoughts. It's interesting because the wholesome thoughts are very deliberate,
Hmm.
whereas I would say the unwholesome thoughts were habits, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. So now what we're going to start looking at is that deliberation. If you say that these are deliberate thoughts, okay, what does that mean? In other words, how is my sati? How often does deliberation happen or deliberate happen? What does deliberate look like?
Deliberate looks like when I'm feeling good, I'm like, oh,
No, that's not. That's a
congratulations.
rhetorical question for you to go
Oh,
investigate.
mm,
That's the what's next with this is that now that we've gotten the mind wholesome, let's go look at all these aspects of wholesome mind,
mm,
which are in fact the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Noble Path in the sense of how's my sati, how's my investigation, how's my effort, how's my attitude, how's my being able to sustain being in a good place, how can I have, how's my way of applying it to come back when I'm not in that good state. How
hmm
can I get back into it? All of this is the stuff that now is needed to be investigated.
mm, mm.
Okay, including that. This is freaking nuts. What does that freaking nuts sound feel like on the inside? What is it that gets us to raise our hands in that kind of joy?
Mm,
And what is that? What is that joy? So this is something now that we can investigate.
mm,
Uh huh. So you got to have a whole lot of that. Oh wow, this is freaking nuts! In order to be able to see, oh, wait a minute, what is going on here?
yeah. Oh, I wanted to say that the joy that I'm experiencing, like, how we said, like, eat too much
Uh-huh.
donuts. I've noticed the belief creep in, or the thought creep in, like, oh, if I'm not eating enough donuts, I'm not gonna
Hmm.
have enough joy. But I just axed that one too.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is that my joy is more, it's more calm. It's more
Uh-huh.
just, it's not really anything significant. It's
Kind
kind of
of
cool,
satisfactory
like
rather
what you're
than
saying. Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
Success has that quality of wow in it, but
Yeah.
satisfaction has more of the quality of the relief.
Yeah. And it's not even like feeling intensely good. It's more like, oh, this
This
is
is,
okay.
yeah,
This
feeling good without it being intense is even kind of better.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this feels nice. This is good. This is all
Guess
right.
what? This is all in the suttas.
I'm sure it is.
It really
It's
is. And
usually
Bhikkhu
what you say.
Buddhadasa has even talked about it directly. Yes, that sometimes too many donuts is too much. Sometimes the exuberance is okay. I got a load of it now. Now I really see it. Let me relax even from that. That I'm even more
Mm.
satisfied because I know that I can control that elation.
And I think one of the reasons why, um I don't know if you remember, but I think reason doesn't really matter, but I think one of the reasons why I'm having so much progress with this is because I've had 1.5 to 2 years of intense staring at my dukkha. So I have like the seeing capability of it. You
I had
just helped
about 10
me.
years
Okay.
before 10 years of intense
Wow.
going to India kind of practice meditation, living in the ashrams and staying with Goenka before I
Wow.
met Buddhadasa. So I was ready for him.
Oh yeah. And
He,
that's how
he
I
picked me
felt.
up and turned me on my head.
Wow. Wow.
Literally.
Well,
Not
then
literally,
that's
I mean, metaphorically.
that's what you've done with me then, huh?
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, it's really great. It's
It
really
is.
great. I have the same seeing now, but um it's matched with right view, right effort, right attitude, seeing that I can do something about the dukkha, seeing that I
And do it
have
right now that you don't have to do something now to get finished with it later.
right,
That's the trick. That this is a now kind of thing. This
right
is not
now.
a. Mhm. And
Yeah.
as we do it more and more, we gain the skills to get better and better at it.
Yeah. And we get more and interested in doing it right now. And it's
Enthusiastic,
yeah,
eager.
eager,
That's part of
eager
the
in doing
path.
it right now.
Hmm
Yeah. And I wanted to say there's a couple moments where I checked in today and I was like, wait, I need to be on guard. I'm going to be on guard because I don't know if I'm missing unwholesome thoughts or not. But then, like, I don't know, another hour would go by and I'd be like, wait, I need to be on guard, but there's no unwholesome. There's no unwholesome thoughts. So it's like,
Well, reminding
this is
yourself, waking
crazy.
up and reminding, but you've got to be on guard. Listen to that. You've got to,
Yeah.
rather than, wow, isn't it nice to be on guard?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
it nice to watch what's going on? To
Yeah.
enjoy the show?
Yeah. So it's normal then for it to feel like the same as it was before you started practicing Dhamma, where you're not really actually aware that you're not aware because there's less to be aware of that
No,
is
you're
hindering you,
aware that there is less to be aware of.
that there's less to be aware of. Yeah.
You're aware that there's less to be aware of.
But being aware of less to be aware of doesn't really seem like anything because you
There's
can't
nothing to
see,
it.
yeah, you can't see what's not there.
Mhm.
It's just not there.
So there's nothing for the cowherd to do. He doesn't have to get up and chase after the cows with the sticks anymore because the cows are okay.
Yeah.
So he just sits and everything is fine.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, let's
Now,
finish this now, but I do want to tell you this much right now. Congratulations, you're moving. And I
oh,
also really appreciate your participation in the Sangha groups and Discord and whatnot. That's great.
I haven't really been on Discord much, but I love the Skype Sangha, and
Excellent.
Keyshawn and I are becoming good friends.
That's what friends are for.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
Excellent. Excellent. Alex. Well, we'll hear you next time. Check in soon and we'll do it again.
Okay.
Keep
All right,
keep
Dhammarato.
going. You're on the right track. You're doing just fine and
Okay.
getting the benefit of it, so you know you are.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.